I think one of my more memorable stories about the restoration was during the reconstruction. One of the companies that did work for us, Skelton Truck Lines, did lots of the body work. But when the truck came back, there's a basket that's behind the chemical tank that wasn't painted. So we sanded down the basket. It's brass across the top, and it held what we call booster line, or it's hard rubber hose, about that big around. And we had to paint it. So Chief Price, Larry Price, has some Emron paint, which is fairly toxic paint, to be honest with you. And he said, well, I got some Emron. And so I brought my spray equipment from my home shop, and we painted it right there in the fire hall. I mean, and the booster lines in it, that hard rubber hose, we needed it too. We needed to get some. So luckily, I was also volunteer up in East Goldenberry in the Holland Landing Station before. And I said to the chief, we have some old booster line out the back there. What are you doing with it? He said, well, what do you want with it? I said, we want to put it on our old truck. He said, what booster line? I said, thanks, chief. So the booster line that's on that truck was donated to us by East Goldenberry Fire Department. Someday I might tell them. I think some of the big challenges was old technology. I mean, it was all new to me. Like, I had a mechanical background. Bob had a background in tractor restoration, which was, fantastic. I mean, he really led the charge on this. But I think the big problem was the old world technology. We sort of had to get used to it, and I had to learn it. I mean, there was stuff on there that I had no idea even what it did. I mean, I talk often about the rear end in that truck had a spring on it, and I said to Bob once, what's the deal with that? And he thought it was something to do with the clutch mechanism, that without that spring it would bounce into gear or whatever. So, I mean, really interesting stuff. It was a learning process for me because I worked on new stuff, always new stuff. To work on the older stuff, which is part and parcel to the new stuff. I mean, some of the companies that worked on that, built equipment for that truck, are still in business. That was some of the big challenges. I think the thing that I really like to hit on this is the fact that the ladder, the extension ladder that's on that truck today, is a recreation of an extension ladder from the 20s. Obviously, it's made of wood. It was made of wood back then, probably oak or something. So what I did was, since we did not have a ladder for that side, is I got 12-foot 2x3s, drilled holes in them, put in dowels. In my shop at home, I made the end butts and the holders that held the fly and the bottom section together, and we made a ladder. Now, what we did was we smacked it with a chain a few times to make it look kind of caged before we actually used barethane on it to give it some protection. But what I did was to put into that truck something that was personal to me and my crew. There's a small medallion on the back of the ground section. It says, about that big around, it says C8, and it's for crew. And that was my signature on that. I would just like to say that Bob Campbell, or Captain Campbell, when I had him back then, he is such a nice person. And what he taught me was, and I carry it to this day, he taught me patience. And in as much as he didn't teach me patience, he showed me that patience makes it better. I mean, when doing restorations, that's the whole thing. He would meticulously take each of these little square nuts off around the bend. And I remember being in the fire hall one day, it was probably a Friday afternoon. I said, Bob, are we keeping these nuts, or are we going to reuse these nuts and bolts? And he said, probably not. So luckily I was there with my air chisel, and I just chiseled off the other side. But Bob was such an inspiration, and he's such an even-tempered guy. He's a great captain, and he's a good friend.